Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood. So if you look in the manifesto of Hamas, you will see the goals that he has. They want to get back, to restore the way, the path of Muhammad. He describes himself as a free fighter. But if we look in the Arabic terminology, Islamic terminology that he's using, he is calling himself as a jihadi fighter. If the world will not wake, eventually it will reach also to other parts of the world, East Asia.
안녕하세요. KRM 뉴스 명영주입니다. 라이흐만대학교에서 이슬람 정치와 이슬람 근본주의 그리고 이집트를 연구하는 마이클 바락 박사님을 모시고 하마스와 극단주의 이슬람에 대해서 들어보도록 하겠습니다. Thank you so much for having us and making time for us.
Thanks for having me.
This October 7 atrocity actually hit by so many people off guard, and it was so surprising. Was this a surprise for you that they were planning this?
Actually, it was not surprising for me. The only thing that's because they talked about it a lot of times, Hamas movement and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, about how to challenge Israel in security matters. But the only thing that surprised me was the brutality, and let's say the ICization of the actions of Hamas, killing these little babies and raping women. This is not something typical to Hamas, and this is something new, and this is the only thing that surprised me.
It was really a brutality with force. Where does this come from? Is it in the Hamas charter, or is it from the Muslim Brotherhood?
Inside the Muslim Brotherhood, there are different streams. There is the radical one, which belongs to Sayyid Qutb. Some of them also use brutal ways. For example, Gama Islamiyah in the 90s was influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood, and they massacred tourists in a very brutal way in the 90s in Luxor, for example, which is a very tourist place. And there are the moderate Muslim Brotherhood that don't adhere to the violence. Hamas, I think, is something that has to be more. We have to do more research about this stage that they become more brutal. Or I think it also relates to Yahya Sinwar, who is the head and the mastermind behind the 7th of October. He is the one who guided them, and there are also documents that were found in the tunnels that there were specific instructions to be brutal against the civilian of Israel in order to increase the Palestinian issue to the Israeli public opinion and the international community. I don't know where exactly when this shift in the, let's say, in Hamas set of mind was exactly, like to use brutal. This is something that we have to make more research.
So it was more of a general Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood stream, but it's actually kind of a flavor of Sinwar's brutality and the planning that actually kind of created these atrocities?
I think so. Yes, actually, there were also in the 90s and in the beginning of the 2000s, there were several Hamas cells that kidnapped Israeli soldiers and they cut their organs. But considering the 7th of October, this is a very exceptional event in Hamas history to use such a brutality, especially against civilians and babies. Parts of the propaganda against Israel is to negate and to deny those events, like there are Jewish Holocaust deniers, but these things were happened, and the humanity should not ignore from these things.
Can you tell us a little bit about who is Hamas?
So Hamas, first of all, is a part of Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. If we want to understand who is Hamas, we need to read his first charter, which was published in 1988. And this is very important because the main goal of Hamas, which is written in the manifesto, is to destroy the Israeli Jewish state, to fight against the Jews, and to establish an Islamic state on the ruins of the Israeli states based on the Sharia, on the Islamic law. Actually, Hamas is a religious movement who has also national characteristics using the Palestinian issue, but also in the first charter, Hamas explained and emphasizing that this is a religious war against the Jews and against the Zionists, And also, for example, in the first charter, there is a very famous tradition, which is also was taken from the Islamic tradition, Hadith, which says that in the day of the doom, when the Messiah will come, the Jews will hide behind the trees and behind the stones, and then the stones and the trees will open their mouth and will say, hey, Muslims, there is a Jewish guy behind me or a Jewish girl, come and kill him. So this tradition is mentioned in the first charter of Hamas in order to show to the Muslim nation, not only to, because Hamas is not addressing only to the Palestinians, but also to the other Muslim nations, that actually this is a religious war against the Jews, and it's written in the holy scriptures of the Islam. And Hamas is also playing on religious motives.
This Muslim Brotherhood is a Sunni, and then also Iran is Shiite. But where does they kind of like converge? How come
So I call them sushi. You know, sushi, Sunna and
Sushi.
Shia, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. They are sharing a joint interest to weaken the hegemony of the West. That's why they are focusing, they are collaborating together. There are also representatives of the Muslim Brotherhood that is living in Iran, in Tehran. By the way, also Al-Qaeda, the leader of Al-Qaeda, Sheikh Saif al-Adel, is also living in Tehran. Although Al-Qaeda is Sunni, is collaborating with the Shia Ayatollah regime because they hate the West. They want to weaken his hegemony. That's why we see that Iran is also fortified and strengthened the ties with China, because they think that China is the alternative, the superpower to United States, and also with Russia, because those countries are able to challenge the hegemony and the power of the West in the region, the Middle East or in the Chinese area. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This is the motto. It doesn't matter now if even there is cooperation between Iran to communists, although they are very small, but also in Iraq they are collaborating with Iran and Hezbollah.
What is their ultimate goal? Would like they want to like conquer the world or what?
It maybe will be sound strange, yes, but yes, for the long term, this is the plan, because we have to remember that the regime in Iran is a very religious one, so it can take 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, because time is very different in the terms of the West, wants everything now. In contrast to the time perception in the East, who has time, and they call it sabr, patience. We can be very patient until we will reach to the ultimate goal. First of all, hegemony of Iran in the region. Secondly, converting people to Islam, Shia Islam in the West and other parts of the world. If you want to see an evidence for that, just read the scriptures of Khomeini, Imam Khomeini, about his plan, about the Islamic Revolutionary Guards plan. For example, Iran is very active in South America, in Brazil, Argentina, and also Venezuela, Paraguay. Also very active over there, building a base. So they're beginning with a small community that expand. Also look on South Africa, what is happens over there. South Africa, I'm not surprised why they now sued Israel to the International Court in Hague, because of Iranian impact and also Hamas impact. There is a Hamas representative and the Iranian representative in South Africa, and time and history will show it, will prove it. So Israel has to face not only, in fighting against these terrorist organization that abducted small kids and women, old people, but also Israel has to deal with the international community, especially the free world. But the Western world doesn't understand the threat of this fundamentalist, radical Islamist ideology. But eventually, Israel is only, one station in the plan of those Islamists to the long run to achieve their ultimate goal. Yes, this is what they want. Those religious fundamentalist Islamist organization. Hamas, Iran, Lebanese Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and others are collaborating together.
So we can call them Islam fundamentalists.
Because they want to get back, to restore the path of Muhammad, and also to use technology in order to accelerate this process to achieve their goal. If the world will not wake, eventually it will reach also to other parts of the world, East Asia, Those radical fundamentalist Islamists, they are not, they are not the majority of the Muslim world. Most of the Muslim world is not interested in terrorism and radicalization. Those fanatic fundamentalists, they are doing the problem.
Many of the people don't know the different streams of Islam. How much do they actually follow these kind of a Hamas view? Because one of the surprising surveys that comes out is that Palestinian and Gazan people, more than 80%, they support the October 7 atrocities, which is kind of shocking. Where did that come from? So does that mean that West Bank and the Gaza Palestinians became radicalized, or are they moderate Muslims? What's going on?
If we are focusing only on the Palestinian arena, again, you don't have one color of Islam. You have many different kinds of Islam. For example, in Gaza Strip, you don't have only Muslim Brotherhood and the Hamas supporters. You have also other branches, for example, Salafi, the Salafi branch, which is considered as a Puritan Islamist stream. This stream is very big in Gaza, and he is one of the criticizers of Hamas. For example, now that Raisi, the president of Iran, died, Sheikh al-Maghribi, one of the prominent Salafi preachers in Gaza Strip, he was very happy.
I saw that he was happy, making speech.
And because of that, because he criticized the bond between Iran to Hamas, he was sent a few years ago to jail. Hamas is not interested that there will be a dissident or Muslims that will criticize Iran. Hamas has a very hard policy against every criticizer in Gaza Strip, sending them to jail. In Gaza Strip, there are also Sufis. Sufi, this is like the mystical dimension of Islam. They consider to be more moderate, but they are also not moderate. It's not black or white. Nobody is hearing about them, but also some of these Sufis were sent to jail by Hamas because they were perceived as collaborators with Israel. So there is oppression also against the Palestinian people. Now, of course, there are the war in Gaza, 7th of October, encourage, let's say, inspiration and support in Hamas. We saw the surveys of Khalil Shkaki, is an institution that makes these surveys, that there is an increase of support of those Palestinians in Hamas. If you want to say this is a fundamentalist, or I don't think this is the issue. You have also secular Muslims that also support Hamas because they want to get back to all of Palestine.
So I actually report to Korean viewers, and then also I mostly consume English media because I don't know Arabic, but they actually are portrayed as a freedom fighter, and they're actually fighting for the Palestinians. But you actually disagree with that?
If you want to understand the enemy or your neighbor, you need to know his native tongue. What is his language? So Hamas is using Arabic to deliver messages to a different audience, and English also is building tailored messages in English or French or German, Russian, and in each one of these languages he send different messages. So in the English and the other Western languages, I don't know if in Korean, I don't know, but he describes himself as a free fighter. But if we look in the Arabic terminology, Islamic terminology that he's using, he is calling himself as a jihadi fighter, a one that is carrying the flag of jihad, holy war, religious war against the enemies of Islam, the Jews. We need to be aware to the messages in Arabic. Hamas is aware that in the West there are some far left movements who are identified and have a sympathy to such a terminology, freedom fighters, fighting against imperialism, fighting against colonialism, because he knows how to address to these people. We have to remember that Hamas is not alone in the battle against Israel and all the West also, by the way. Qatar, for example, also had a plan to weaken the Western support in Israel, and to create sympathizers to the Muslim world by investing in the education in the West. Education is the key for everything. Education is very important from young age. There is a lot of Qatari money that is being sent to the universities in United States, also United Kingdom, in order to create a sympathizing Qatar, Muslim world, and also, by the way, Hamas, the Palestinian issue. And so we begin with that, with the education.
What would you like to give advice to the viewers or the people who's consuming these media?
First of all, don't believe to everything that is published in the media, because you don't know who is the journalist, if he is coming with agenda. If you want to find out, let's say, not the complete, but most of the truth, read the manifesto of, for example, of Hamas and the constitution of Iran. So if you look in the manifesto of Hamas, you will see the goals that he has. So you have to also double check yourselves with other sources. Today it's very difficult because of we are in age of disinformation, of fake news, AI. It's very difficult to know what is the truth. So don't believe to everything that you hear in the news. Make double check and try to find the truth as much as you can.
Thank you so much for your time and amazing stories about what Islam is and your insight and advices.
Kamzan Mida, thank you.